Madam Chairman, if I could,
Jason, 5:30, we're ready to start. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Monday, December the 13th. Call this meeting to order. Shelby, would you please do roll call?
Janice Menking, Jim Giroux,
here.
Daryl Whitworth,
Here.
Jeff Lawrence,
Here.
Emily Kirchner, here, Holly Rickard,
Here.
Tim Dooley,
Here.
Steve Thomas.
Here.
Okay. First item on the agenda is for me to nominate Polly Rickard as the vice chairman of this board. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Just to clarify, is that for just today's meeting?
Yeah, let's start with that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
But if it gets too complicated, we'll do it again.
I second that. For today's meeting.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much. Holly, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, we will move on to item 5A, public hearing for request Z2103, Robert Mosley applicant to consider a conditional use permit for section 5.400 for condominium residential use on a C1 zone property located at 803 South Eagle Street. Do I have a motion to open public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open public hearing.
Motion by Jim, second by Daryl. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. So this request is for a conditional use permit. The C1 zoning allows condominium regimes by right or through a CUP process. The project that is before you today is an 8-unit condominium project that the applicant is providing 16 spaces, two spaces per unit. However, you'll notice that there's no guest parking on this facility. Given its location to Friendship Lane, this does not provide the ability for guests to park out on the street as you would in a single-family subdivision neighborhood. So based on the site plan, staff has some concerns or conditions that we're asking to be placed on the CUP today. So I'll go through those. As far as the CUP recommendation, we recommend providing additional guest parking. You'll notice on that site plan, those parking spaces were facing towards the street. We think through some reconfiguration, there's some possibility for some additional units in front of 202 and 301. And this was discussed at the last meeting that we had on this. The second issue was staff was requesting to provide sidewalks along Friendship Lane. We've got multiple other developments in the area, mixed use on Friendship with Seiko. That would give the ability for residents to move from that project to the commercial or the adjacent tract. And then the property is currently still addressed on South Eagle. We just say that that needs to change to Friendship Lane, given its address or entrance location. There's a couple of recommendations we have on the site plan. Again, this goes, site plan can be approved as part of the CUP. We're looking at striping both sides of the fire lane, so that would be the entire area. Our concern would be someone would try and park up against closer to Friendship Lane behind the existing parking and possibly block emergency access. You'll notice there are some dumpster locations that are inside of the building setback along South Eagle. I'll highlight those right here. There's some roll-off stations there. Those need to be relocated outside of the setback. And then we'll have to have some conversations with the landowner on if he wants to continue roll-off, where those places for drop-off are. He could put a concrete pad there and have folks drive them out to the right-of-way for city pickup. But most multifamily developments, even though this is a single family as far as ownership goes, generally do dumpsters, and the cities doesn't do commercial trash. The last recommendation from staff was regarding on the site plan was just provide the sidewalks along Friendship Lane, and then this is all contingent on civil construction plans being approved through engineering. So at this time, I'll turn it back to you, Chairman, and can answer any questions if you have any at this time.
The site plan, that is not the correct site plan, by the way. The site plan has been revised. The parking is up against, the parking goes in, not against the street. I have agreed to every condition that has been put on the site plan in terms of dumpsters, sidewalks, additional parking places. We've added 6 parking places. Anything else on there, Jason, that comes to your mind?
I don't think so. I haven't seen that updated site plan. That probably went straight to engineering for civil.
Right, it's at the civil. The civil engineers have that, and they are about complete with their civil drawings. So, but we have no objection to anything that you've asked us to do.
Thank you, sir.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Action item for request Z2103 by Mark Road, Mosley applicant to consider a conditional use permit for section 5.400 for condominium residential use on a C1 zone property located at 803 South Hewitt Street.
I move that we approve it as presented with the stipulations and the drawings coming out of civil that are approved.
I'll second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Move on to public hearing for 5B for request Z2114 by West and County Pack to consider a conditional use permit for section 3.510 to construct a first floor bed and breakfast unit in the historic shopping district overlay on property located at 5.4 West San Antonio Street. Thomas's.
I move we go out of public, regular session into public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Yes, so the applicant is requesting a CUP. This is not just for a short-term rental, but it's actually for short-term rentals on the first floor. Our historic shopping overlay district requires that any short-term rentals on the ground floor receive a CUP. The thought process is that the ground floor would allow for additional shopping and retail with short-term rentals above. However, the zoning on this property would not allow any retail use, so there'd be no ground floor retail to be associated with it. If you recall, the applicant is proposing 3 additional units in the rear. The existing structure is a duplex style home. It has 2 units that are operating as current short-term rentals. The applicant is providing 3 additional units After some discussion with staff from our previous meetings, they originally had come in with 5 total parking spaces. Now they're providing 8. There'll be 7 for the units plus the handicap parking. So they also provide fire access. They relocated from the original. They put the pools and hot tubs kind of hide them behind the units instead of along the property lines. So those are really the only major concerns staff had the first go around. And so the applicant, considering he met those responses, staff has the recommendations that the occupancy be limited to 2 guests per each unit, since there wasn't a massive amount of additional parking allowed, and that a screening fence be provided along the side and rear property lines. That was some discussions with the neighbors about privacy. Again, the property is adjacent to CBD, so it could back up to a bar or nightclub. R2 does allow the short-term rentals by right, and this meets the current short-term rental ordinance.
And we received 1 protest.
Yes, ma'am. That was part of your packet. It's part of the packet. If you want to read it, if everybody has it, it's up to you.
Unless they says it. Do I hear a motion to move out of public hearing, or do we have any public comments? Sorry, on this one? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to move out of public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so then we move to action item 6B. Action item for request Z2114 by Weston San Pac to consider a conditional use permit for section 3.510 to construct a first floor bed and breakfast unit in the historic shopping district overlay on property located at 514 West San Street.
I move we approve it as presented with stipulations from staff.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And we move to public hearing item 5C. Request Z2115 by Carolyn Ellebrock to consider a voluntary annexation and requested zoning for single-family residential R1 for approximately 10.839 acres of land out of a remaining portion of a 258-acre tract described in Volume 63, page 366, deed records, Gillespie County, Texas, also being situation in the William H. Anderson Survey number 197, abstract number 2, Gillespie County, Texas, located at the south end of Stone Ledge Drive, east of the Stone Ridge subdivision. Now I will note that Steve Thomas has rejoined the commission.
Move we go out of regular session into public hearing.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we're now in public session. Do we have any comments on this item from the public?
I move we go out of public hearing back into regular session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Back in regular session, so we will take up 6C, action item 6C, which is request Z2115 by Carolyn Ellebrock to consider a voluntary annexation and requested zoning of single-family residential R1 for approximately 10.839 acres of land out of a remaining portion of a 258-acre tract described in Volume 3, page 366, deed records, Gillespie County, Texas, also being situation in the William H. Anderson Survey number 197, abstract number 2, Gillespie County, Texas, located at the south end of Stone Ledge Drive, east of the Stone Ridge subdivision.
I move we approve as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Then we will move to item 5D, public hearing for request number Z-2122 by John Hewitt with Hewitt Engineering to consider a request for a future land use change from medium density residential MDR and low density residential LDR to a future land use of high density residential HDR for approximately 6.9 acres of land described as Lot 1 of the Villages of Windcrest subdivision located on the north side of West Windcrest Drive, approximately 1,300 feet west of the Post Oak Road and West Windcrest Drive intersection. Do I hear a motion?
I have a motion to continue.
Second.
Second. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Does anybody in the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we go out of public hearing back into regular session.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We move to action item 6D. Request Z-2122 by John Hewitt, Hewitt Engineering, to consider a request for a future land use change from medium-density residential MDR and low-density residential LDR to a future land use of high-density residential HDR for approximately 6.9 acres of land described as Lot 1 of the Villages of Windcrest subdivision located on the north side of West Windcrest Drive, approximately 1,300 feet west of Post Oak Road and West Windcrest Drive intersection.
I move we approve it as presented.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Move back to item 5E, public hearing for request Z-2122 by John Hewitt with Hewitt Engineering to consider a request for a zoning change from medium residential R2 to multifamily residential R3 for approximately 6.9 acres of land described as Lot 1 of the Villages of Windcrest subdivision located on the north side of West Windcrest Drive, approximately 1,300 feet west of Post Oak Road and West Windcrest Drive intersection.
Move we go into public hearing at a regular session.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are in public session. Any members of the public wish to comment on this item?
I move we go out of public hearing back into regular session.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will move to action item 6E. Request Z-2122 by John Hewitt with Hewitt Engineering to consider a request for a zoning change from medium residential R2 to multifamily residential R3 for approximately 6.9 acres of land described as Lot 1 of the Villages of Windcrest subdivision located on the north side of West Windcrest Drive, approximately 1,300 feet west of Post Oak Road and West Windcrest Drive intersection.
Move we approve as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
It's just not gonna have any minds that open
It's
it.
gonna make some oxygen.
That's why I keep doing
I
it.
know.
Bring it feed.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 5F, public hearing for request Z-2123 by Whitney Koch with Mustard Design to consider a request for a future land use change from Parks Open Space, POS, to future land use classification of commercial C for the rear portion of property located at 305 South Washington.
Move we go out of regular session into public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah, so this application is being considered due to the next item on the agenda, which is a requested zoning change. If you look at the property in its totality, it is all zoned commercial, or I'm sorry, future land use plan calling out this area commercial. The one area that shows as needing a different classification is the park and open space. Under the current zoning, the way the language is written, it's not clear on what can be done or used on that existing zoning. And so to clean up the area, when we do these rezoning, staff has been bringing these back to P&Z and council just so that they're all aware of what can be done or what can't be done. Just to let you know, also with any zoning or future land use when it regards to floodplain development, Even if the use is allowed, they still have to do floodplain development permits and it goes through, so it may be possible that something can't be built there, even though the zoning does allow it. So this is just the first step in the case. I would like to touch on the zoning change as part of this. That's okay, Daniel, just since they go together. So if you look on the zoning map, the subject area, the most part, future land use calls out as commercial that's currently zoned R3. So the applicant is proposing a short-term rental facility located on both tracks. They will need to replat this into one property. Given the current zoning, the proposed site plan that's associated would be permitted under the existing zoning regulations. But the applicant wanted to work with the city and clean this area up and get it all under one zoning. There's been some discussion about what can be done on the open space in the back, say that the zoning change was denied. Again, as I mentioned earlier, from a land use perspective, the owner could continue to do the project. It would meet all of our current regulations for the C2 and the R3 zoning district. They are possibly proposing a swimming pool that may be located just inside this area, or portion of it inside that open space area. Open space, when you look at the zoning district, does not allow structures to be built, and there's certain land uses that can be done. In this case, the land use would be the facility up to the front of the property, and there would be no structure in the floodplain. We are looking at a pool, but currently the way we define structures, a pool does not meet that definition, and currently they're allowed in the setback. So as long as their floodplain development permit came back okay, whether we had a zoning change or not, this project could move forward. So just a little bit of background on and some information on how that open space works. So Chairman, I'll turn it over to you and answer any questions if you have any at this time.
Okay. I do have one on, one of the protests that we got was that the property line is wrong. It should not come over the creek. Do y'all have any comment on that?
That is a land dispute between two owners on where their property line ends. We are using the appraisal district data, and so that is what the state requires us to use. So this is kind of what we go off. If there was some point where they settled that through either through the courts or through themselves, we could try and get that updated. There were some comments on the notification area going through her house. Again, that notification area is just to select portions of property within 200 feet so that we can know to send those people a letter. It doesn't signify where that use would be or anything like that. So just a clarification.
Do we have any public comment on this one? Seeing none.
Motion for public hearing.
I think this gentleman here,
Which one?
do you want to speak, sir?
Peggy, do you have something to say this evening?
No, I don't, I'm not sure where it stands. I need to sit down with someone sometime after this meeting.
Okay, what case are you interested in? This one right here? Okay.
Okay.
Do you have any concerns for us tonight on the use?
My main concern, I hadn't seen how they were approaching what they were wanting to do, and I've got the joining property. And no problem with the idea, but I worry what happens if something goes awry with that somewhere down the line. That becomes very inexpensive housing. A little packed neighborhood.
Well, to answer that, if you look on the screen here, this is a kind of a demonstration of what they'll be doing. So this area right here is Highway 16. That's the, I'm sorry, 87. Thank you. And this home is the existing commercial business that you see that fronts on 87 in the gray. And then they are looking at, again, 6 units along the back. This line that you see here, where my arrow is going to represent, sorry, it's going to represent this line somewhere in here. So they're looking at keeping that pool in this area. As far as transitioning to single family homes, Given the current parking, I don't know that would be allowed. And most likely, they would have to switch to some type of commercial use because of the parking requirements for single family.
Well, and this is the other thing that disturbs me is that, I think we put anything in that other thing. Property that we have been in the family for so many years. Uh, We see every 7 to 8 years. that, Filled with water, the bank almost down the street. Across from. And I would worry about that. It was down there. Or, but might be made on both sides.
And so that's an understandable concern. We have a separate floodplain permit, so before they can go under construction for their buildings, but anytime they touch that floodplain, that's a separate review process through our engineers to ensure that no negative effects.
Okay, I'm not familiar with who is doing this building, and they local people, someone I can be in touch with, just visit the neighbors.
Are you Mr. Petmecki?
Yes. Oh. Oh, yeah, that's, good.
Yes, I'm here at Mustard Design.
Okay,
We have, we can be in touch.
okay, super.
Thank you, sir.
Serving my purpose being here tonight, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to go public hearing.
Motion and second, all in favor? Motion. To item 5F, 6F. 6F, action item 6F. Action item 6F for request Z-2123 by Whitney Cook with Mustard Design to consider a request for a future land use change from Parks Open Space, POS, to a future land use classification of Commercial C for the rear portion of property located at 305 South Washington Street. Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We will move to item 5G. I'm getting my pages mixed up here. All looks alike. Public hearing for request Z-2123 by Whitney Cook of Mustard Design to consider a request for a zoning change from multifamily residential R3 and open space OS to a zoning classification of commercial C2 for the rear portion of property located at 305 South Washington Street.
Make a motion to go into public hearing.
Do you have a second?
Yes, second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We're now in public hearing. If anybody wishes to comment on this particular item. Okay, staff comments have already been made.
I move to go out of public hearing back into regular session.
I'll give that a second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We will move to item 6G, action item, for request Z-2123 by Whitney Cook with Mustard Design to consider a request for a zoning change from multifamily residential R3 and open space OS to a zoning classification of commercial C2 for the rear portion of property located at 305 South Washington Street.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Go ahead. Let me ask for a question. I have a question.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes. Friend question, any pushback to the fact that we're basically converting parks open space to commercial?
Officially, unofficially, there's some rumors, social media around, but this is going away. And from a staff perspective, though, this open space should be. The goal is just to. pre-commercial, previously working on the interpretation of that function as an overlay. Staff perspective. Could there be some protest from other folks in the neighborhood?
Okay, any other discussion?
Call for the question.
I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve. Z 21.2.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
like call for the question.
Yes, okay. So no other comments, so I will take the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
For those of you who have not been here before, this seems like a train, but it is because this is the third time we've seen all of this. The second meeting was 2.5 to 3 hours.
Yes,
So all the decisions have been made prior, but now I think, Daniel, we're legal, aren't we?
okay.
Oh, now, wait a minute.
We still have to go through council and then we'll be good.
Very good. Thank you.
So I will do,
I would like to make one just correction, Mr. Dooley. Only 514 are we seeing for the third time. The rest of this is the second go around. So
Yeah.
just,
Sorry.
yeah.
Yes.
So
Come see, come see.
we do have one more agenda item. Yes, ma'am. Did you have a question?
Is there a special council call for community day?
yes, that is the December 20th at 5 p.m. So we're gonna handle these items prior to our regular December 20th meeting. So hopefully we're not delaying anybody too incredibly long. So again, we do apologize. Thank you.
Bring your stopwatch and see if we beat them, okay?
So I have our next agenda item is item 3, public comment. Planning and zoning welcomes public comment concerning items on this agenda. Each member of the public who desires to address the P and Z regarding an item is required to sign up to speak prior to the start of the meeting. All public comments shall be limited to discussion of items on this agenda. And is this the public comment piece? Okay. Never mind. And shall be limited to 3 minutes in duration at the discretion of P and Z chair or upon affirmative vote of P and Z. The public comment time limit applicable to all speakers may be lengthened or shortened as required to allow the P and Z to complete its legislative agenda. Anybody wish to speak in public comment? Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate that.
Can you give us your name and approach the podium, please?
When do you live in the city?
Do you live in the city or outside the city?
In the city, I live in Stone Ridge.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity. I know I didn't sign anything, but I appreciate you letting me speak. I live at the, and I'm going to address C, 5C, 6C.
Could you state your name, please?
I'm sorry, Robert Davis. I live at 2304 Stone Ridge, Amberstone. That's on the south, I believe it'd be the southwest corner of the subject property. And I'm concerned with the drainage. We have a drainage problem already. And when we start putting in property there, when they start developing it, it's going to, I expect it'll make it worse. So that's my concerns, and I don't know who to go to address those. I used to be able to talk to Levi, but that's not possible anymore since he's deceased. So I don't know what provisions that are going to do in that development, or if this is a place to ask that question, but I have to ask it. How is that going to affect me? What it's going to do? What is going to be done to keep me from being flooded?
So I can answer a couple of those questions, sir. If you need direct engineering questions that you'd like answered, I'm not an engineer, so I would ask that you contact us at the city. I can get in touch with you with Garrett Bond. He's our city engineer,
Okay.
or Evan Williamson. But the next step on this is they're going to be submitting their construction plans for the roads and the lot layout. The lot layout was done as part of a preliminary plat, as when the first phase was done. They did all 11 phases when they got approvals for that. So really what we'll be looking at is drainage and roadway. So as part of that civil construction design, that's what they look at, is the impervious cover and the flow of water. So, most likely, most of the drainage as far as the overall detention has probably been captured or been considered for capture. So there should be adequate volume if there's any drainage facilities there. The roads will most likely help you to eliminate some of the additional water. You're probably getting sheet flow right off of that hill coming straight down. Once we get those roads in place, that'll do some to redirect that water along the curb and gutting. So everything that gets reviewed as part of the civil construction has to have a zero net increase on adjacent landowners. If they don't meet that threshold, then those plans are denied until they do. But Garrett Vaughn would be the person to talk to, and like I said, you can just call me at City Hall and I can get you his number.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Any other items to discuss?
Move to adjourn. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners. We really do appreciate your second time in a week, second time in 2 weeks.
Because that was a painfully long. Yeah. Thing went on forever.
We may still be recording, just a reminder.